did you see all the questions about the Romanian deadlift on your recent video? Yes, Tommy, I saw a bunch of questions, and today we're going to answer a lot of questions about the Romanian deadlift. For beginners, we're going to talk about one really simple hack that can make it more effective as a stretch and strength exercise in case you have any balance issues. We're going to talk about doing a Romanian deadlift in a wheelchair. We're going to talk about kettlebells, barbells. We're going to talk about reps. We're going to talk about all kinds of things with the Romanian deadlift so that you understand what you're doing and how to do this exercise safely and in a way that is helpful for your body. So, Tommy, are you ready? I'm ready, baby. Good. In that case, let's get ready to think right, move right, and do a nice solid hip hinge right. Oh yeah. Woo! So I recently put out a video on the Romanian deadlift. If you haven't seen it yet, I'll link it in the description box and at the end of this video. And there were a bunch of good questions and one comment that I thought was pretty funny, and I wanted to address that as well. And it was, yes, from a troll. So first, let's start with the troll. What do you think, Tommy?
Yeah, I love eating trolls for breakfast.
This trolley type comment actually highlights an underlying fear that a lot of people have when they're starting to do the Romanian deadlift. So Phil Anthony says, I wonder how many people are going to hurt themselves by doing this.
I think this is a learning moment.
So let's learn. Here's Tommy Tamago. Tommy, how much do you weigh?
I don't know, about 1/10 of a pound.
Tommy weighs next to nothing, but stop me when this story sounds familiar. I'm gonna go pick up Tommy, but I haven't bent over like this in about 27 years. And when I go to pick up this very light object, I struggle. My spine moves in funny ways. I'm really shaking in my legs, in my butt. My spine is starting to feel like it's stretching too much. I'm even moving my shoulders to get to the thing. And then when I lift, oh God, Tommy, 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 I am your father. How many people do you know, besides yourself, who have thrown out some joint in their body trying to pick up something that was trivially light from the floor? You know that this happens to people even though the objects themselves are clearly not heavy enough to be the cause of the issue. What's the cause of the issue? Tommy, can you tell them?
It's lack of practice of the movement pattern and a lack of strength in that movement pattern.
In other words, if you never practice a specific movement pattern, you should not have the expectation that you're going to be able to do it smoothly, easily, and without injury. Because modern life requires almost no movement out of your body, and all of these muscles don't really get the attention they need from your regular, boring desk job or your retired life staring at the television watching people like me on YouTube. I guess you might also be watching game shows or those awful TV news channels. Our point here is that if you choose to give in to the fear of injury during the exercise, you're actually choosing to increase the risk of injury at some unknown date later in your life when you are too atrophied and uncoordinated to properly pick something up from the floor. Or you can choose to do the Romanian deadlift safely in a way that respects your body's current limits today, and that will greatly minimize your risk of injury during the exercise and also greatly minimize your risk of injury when you are going about your daily life.
Seems like the choice is clear.
And it seems clear to me that training your body with a Romanian deadlift so that you have more capacity in your daily life and you have lower risk of injury is the much preferred option to just waiting until you get weak enough to get hurt. Ready for the next question?
Yeah, it's a good one.
And this next question is really good and it'll help you if you're a beginner and you find yourself losing your balance and you just feel too wobbly and unstable, and that makes you a little bit fearful. So Katie 1984 mentioned that they have trouble with the Romanian deadlift because they feel like they're losing their balance when they go lower than their knees, which is a bummer because if you can get your hands lower than your knees, you're going to get a real nice stretch. You're going to really help your hips, your hamstrings, your spine, again, your shoulders. Everything is going to get better if you can get lower. But you got to be able to get down there safely. You got to feel like you have control. You got to feel like your body can handle it. So in Katie's comment, they mentioned that once they get low and then they have to come back up, it just feels like they're off balance and wobbly and it feels dangerous. Well, here's the fix.
Let's share the beginner tip.
So if you're a beginner with the Romanian deadlift and you feel like you are wobbly, especially when you're coming up, you just feel like you bend your knees, you gotta throw all kinds of weight all around, and you're just unstable, then here is a simple hack that will help you clean things up. you're gonna stand close to a wall. So my feet are not gonna be against the wall, but a little bit away, and then butt goes back against the wall. So you can play around with the distances to see what feels good for you. Don't be super far away, that won't make any sense, and you'll just be dropping the weights onto your knees, which I'm pretty sure won't be comfortable. So you wanna have your feet just a little away from the wall. Your butt size, your foot size, your leg length will all change where you put your feet, so figure it out for yourself. You wanna keep your knees pretty straight, and then you're gonna keep your butt against the wall as you do the Romanian deadlift, okay? So I'm feeling the butt against the wall the whole time. Let me move my feet, that'll feel a little bit better. I'm keeping the weights under control as I come up, squeezing my butt, my hamstrings, and there's no balance issue because the wall is here. I have this reference point. Over time though, you can start to use that reference point less, use that assistance less. Okay, so as you come up then, when you're doing this with no help, your butt is no longer touching the wall. But when you feel like you need the help, the wall is there to provide a backstop. And then up. So I hope this helps you, Katie, and anybody else who feels wobbly with a Romanian deadlift. You can just use the wall, use that help. Your butt will be happy, your back will be happy, your shoulders will be happy, your hips will be happy. Everyone will be happy.
I'll be happy.
You may have noticed that this video is not polluted with promotional breaks or ads. That's because I find those things super annoying personally, and I prefer to not have them on my own videos. That said, being on YouTube has become a lot harder, so if you'd like to support these videos, do this. Go to uprighthealth.com/DIY and find a program that looks like it'll help you achieve your goals. They're money back guaranteed, and they will help you achieve your goals, which will help me make more videos like this, which means I get to help more people for free without annoying ad breaks all the time. So if that sounds good to you, check out the links below, uprighthealth.com/DIY. And now let's get back to the video. Okay, and then the next question is from Uncle Xmas, who says, can I do this technique with kettlebells? The answer is yes, but let me show you a couple nuances. So in that previous video, I mentioned using dumbbells to start with because that is the simplest, easiest option. You can buy dumbbells pretty much everywhere. Any gym will have them, and it doesn't require any sort of maneuvering of a big unwieldy barbell or anything. But there's something else you need to notice with using dumbbells versus kettlebells. When you are doing the deadlift with dumbbells, you have a lot of clearance from the floor because the dumbbells don't really extend much past your fingers. So it's maybe a couple inches. It's not a lot that's gonna hit the floor before you hit the end of your range of motion. So that allows you to get real deep over time as your hamstrings get stronger and more flexible. With kettlebells, you can see that the handle is much higher from the floor than the handle of the dumbbell. And while that difference of a few inches doesn't really matter when you're first starting and your hamstrings are too stiff to even allow you to get that low, it does matter in the long run because you will be shortchanging your range of motion. If I take the kettlebell and start going down into the hinge, the kettlebell bottom is going to hit the ground before I have even reached the end of my full range of motion. So what are my options? Well, I could grab the kettlebell differently, like this, and then actively use my forearms and wrists to keep it higher so I don't bottom out. But I'm still gonna bottom out at some point a little bit sooner than the dumbbell. Which brings us to the next tip, which might help if you're using kettlebells or dumbbells and your hamstrings are flexible enough to allow you to bottom out. Since you can't make the ground lower, you're gonna have to make your feet higher, which is why I have these cheap plastic steps here. You can use anything you've got handy. You could even stand on a bench to elevate yourself from the surface. So if I'm now using a kettlebell, I bottom out way lower. So I'm gonna step up here, I come down, and this is where I would bottom out normally on the floor, but since I'm elevated, I can drag that kettlebell down further. The kettlebell can actually drag me down further, and ooh yeah, we're all having fun here. The downside is depending on the geometry of your kettlebell and the thing you're standing on, you're gonna get some rubbing going on here. If you do this from a bench, it might be a little bit better. You might not run into it so much, but make sure your bench is super stable. Make sure that you're not risking injury by tipping or anything like that. So this can be a great way to do it with a kettlebell if you've got that flexibility. And you can do the same with a dumbbell. And there's a question related to all this about barbells. Can you handle this?
Lori is wondering whether a barbell or dumbbells is better. She doesn't really want to build a lot of muscle. She just wants to get a bit stronger. So she's thinking maybe she should just do lower repetitions and use a barbell.
First of all, I'm not against using a barbell for the Romanian deadlift. I think it's a great idea once you have the strength to safely move a barbell and feel confident about it. At most gyms, you're gonna have barbells that are of standard weight, which is about 45 pounds. So if you're just starting and you don't feel comfortable with 45 pounds in your hands, you should not be using a barbell. But as you get stronger and as you get less intimidated by a barbell, you can absolutely use one. And I will mention that the barbell can be a very helpful tool for building even more flexibility because you can now have it drag you super low, super far down, and it doesn't really run into as much as a kettlebell would, and even as a dumbbell might. So the barbell has this low profile that can just sink down past the bench or whatever you're using, and that can be great if you're really trying to load your hamstrings and get used to a really big range of motion. But again, if you are a total beginner with a Romanian deadlift, stick to dumbbells to start with because they allow you to dial in the weight to exactly what you can currently tolerate. Somebody who can only safely lift 10 pounds or 15 pounds with dumbbells should not be messing with barbells, period, until they feel confident with that amount of weight. And also, the barbell is going to be a little bit different with what you're doing with your arms and hands. It can be a little bit harder to maintain the retraction of your shoulder blades. So those are all things to consider.
What about her question about how many reps?
So Lori is expressing a very common concern among women who are lifting weights. Many of them don't want to add a lot of mass, a lot of muscle, a lot of bulk that might make them look a bit more manly. There's also this idea that if you lift heavier weights for fewer repetitions, you won't build as much muscle mass. You'll just be focused on building strength, output. And if you use like a medium weight in higher repetitions, you're going to build more muscle. So to answer this concern, I would just say this. You want to work in a rep range and with a weight that feels like you can safely control it. Especially with a Romanian deadlift, if you add muscle and add mass, it's all going to your butt, your hamstrings, and maybe some of your back and shoulders. But your butt and hamstrings are very likely going to develop in a way that you find, what's the word?
Bootylicious.
Bootylicious is not the word I was thinking of. Let's go for something a little more subtle.
Juicy.
I'm not sure that's any more appropriate. What I'm trying to say is if you are adding more muscle to your butt and hamstrings, I don't think you're going to be displeased with the result. Aesthetically, you're probably going to like it, and other people might like it too, not that their opinion necessarily matters.
Bootylicious.
I also want to mention that genetics can play a very large role in how easy it is for you to add muscle to your body. For me, it tends to be kind of hard, but I know men and women who pack on muscle when they just look at a weight. So whether you add a whole bunch of muscle or a little bit of muscle might not really even be your choice. But developing strength and coordination is a choice, and your top priority when doing the Romanian deadlift should be your safety. So I personally would not suggest you load heavy and try to keep a low rep range with a really high intensity. I would say choose a weight that's in the medium to light range that you can do comfortably, easily for a good number of repetitions that feels like you're getting full range of motion and never really straining and compensating. You want it to be smooth so that you're able to hinge well, so you're able to get down to the floor, so your hamstrings are developing length and strength, so your shoulders develop control. You want all of those benefits, and you don't really need to focus on maximizing the amount of weight that you're lifting.
Leave that to guys like me.
Do you even lift, bro?
That's the question they ask about you, dude.
The answer is yes, but obviously not that much. The final question is from Nicole, and it's a real interesting, challenging question, and I'm not sure that I have the best answer, but I'm gonna take a swing at it anyway. If you watch this and you think you've got a better answer, please drop it in the comment section down below, because this is well outside my area of expertise, but this is the best I could come up with. So again, not an expert, but here's my best guess thinking about it in the garage. You need a cable or a band that's attached to a very sturdy, steady anchor point. You could use a cable machine or something. You cannot be in a wheelchair with a fixed back, and honestly, I don't know what wheelchair technology is like these days. I don't know if they have backs that can be set flat or close to flat. If they do, then that would be perfect. You would just lock in, recline the back there, make sure the wheels can't move, and then you would be holding on to the cable or the band, and then you would be firing your glutes, keeping your shoulders back, and then going to that reclined position, and then the weight would pull you forward again. So then you're firing everything, pulling to get to that position, and then the weight's pulling you back. That's basically taking the Romanian deadlift, which we did, standing and just flipping everything 90 degrees, and now we have the band working as our weights. Now, if wheelchairs don't have reclining backs, then you'd have to be on the edge of a bench, and then you'd have to be able to secure your feet or your shins against leg rollers or something to have some stability when you're pulling back, but the idea is the same. So those are my ideas for doing a Romanian deadlift if you are in a wheelchair. I hope that's somewhat helpful. If it's not, I hope it at least inspires some new way of thinking about it so that you can find some way to modify it. If you have the use of your legs, which I'm not sure of based on the comment, you could also just do some simple hamstring strengthening exercises using a band or a cable machine and just go like this, right? So now you're doing hamstring curls while you're seated in the wheelchair, and that is definitely doable. And while it's not exactly the same as a Romanian deadlift, it does train your hamstrings and build some strength and pump some blood into your backside, which can be pretty important if you are sitting all day long. We did it! We got through all the questions in this longer than anticipated video on the Romanian deadlift. I hope you found all of it helpful, and I hope it inspired you to get your body moving. If you'd like help rebuilding your body at home, check out my do-it-yourself programs at uprighthealth.com/DIY. You'll find them also linked down below on YouTube. Hit the like button if you liked this video. I assume you did. If you made it this far, subscribe because you're gonna like my future videos too. And as always, I hope you remember that pain sucks, life shouldn't.